Peace and blessings, family. This is El Malik El Shamsu coming to you again with a little bit of information. I want to talk about the Doctrine of Discovery, the black badge, and what are we going to do. And when I say we, I'm talking about the revolutionaries, the ones who see that there's a problem, the one who's been sitting in their rooms late night, no sleep, trying to figure out solutions. What are we going to do? So before I get into the solution, I wanted to get a little backdrop on the Doctrine of Discovery and this black badge of slavery, because this is the crux of it all. The crux of it all is simply this. When the Europeans developed their governments using the Christian creed, the first European laws of the West was what we style as the Doctrine of Discovery. The Doctrine of Discovery are a succession of papal bulls and edicts, legal statutes, ratified, circulated amongst European nations to legally sanction our communities, legally kidnap us, enslave us, and strip us of our right to our property and our culture. These were the first laws. This gave the Europeans, under the Pope, the authority to war with our people and to make engagements with some of our people who were willing to turn their backs on others. So, in stripping us, they began to apply terms like black, Negro, colored, sometimes Ethiops. These are badges. These are brands. Another example of a badge is your skin. Because as they distinguish between pale and melanated, which they began to do between the Moors and Saracens that they listed in the Doctrine of Discovery, they began to see an otherness to the Negro. And this otherness came in the form of stripping, or the right to strip, because they just were so outside of their perception of God. So I suggest people go and look at those papal bulls and try to read and see what's going on with them. See what can be done. I'm driving, excuse me. Out here going in. Look at them and see the names, used. And they will use Saracens. They would use those people, the Mohammedans. They would use those terms to distinguish our people, because we, so-called African people, brought that creed of Islam into Europe. From North Africa through Spain. There's no doubt about that. So they branded you with this badge, this black badge. And this badge, according to the law, was associated with disabilities and disenfranchisement. You weren't allowed to do this. You weren't allowed to do that. You had to perform meritorious services. You had to post secured bonds just to be legally present in the jurisdiction of white people. You were not recognized as an actual community. You were looked upon as a savage backward people that didn't have the right to be recognized. They did the same to the indigenous people here, who they called blacks and Negroes. But then you had the fur wars with France and Russia, and China became heavily involved in the fur trade. And you had groups of people coming out of Siberia who were paid mercenaries for Europeans to secure lands in the West. But that's a whole nother perspective. I'm talking about those who were enslaved during the Yamasee Wars, King Philip's Wars, and Seminole Wars. Those people were also stripped. Those people were also branded. And these laws are the same laws that they're using today. It's just that the statutes that they use today are mere modifications of the laws that they were used during the colonization, the Negro laws. Because those codes were primarily the codes that regulated commerce, because their main staple of commerce was slaves, or stripped Moors who were bonded laborers. Now you had other people who weren't considered themselves Moors, I guess, but we're talking about what the Europeans looked at us as, and we're talking about when we had jurisdictions on equal footing with them, what we described ourselves as. So the solution is, those who are revolutionaries, those who feel that they have put in enough work and they're willing to put in more work to make a difference, you're going to have to decide what laws you want to uphold. You see, us Muslims, we uphold the Sharia because those are divine laws that were brought down to our ancestors, and we can implement those laws to live a balanced culture and a balanced society. But many of our people have adopted Christian ways and have adopted European customs that mix with the Christian ways. Because you can go into the Bible and say, hey, I'm a Christian, I follow the Bible, but as soon as you start to use the Bible to contradict the laws that Europeans or the customs that Europeans place on us, then we seem as if we're using the Bible for our selfish gain. An example of this is polygyny. You have polygyny throughout the Bible. You have times in Isaiah 5:6 where it says that 7 women's going to cling to one man and just beg for his last name. Because eyes were haughty, roving the faces of men. And their men died in war because they didn't pay attention to the immaculate conception that was necessary to preserve this society. But now you have people who say that they're Christians and say that they don't promote. Matter of fact, they're staunchly against polygyny, as if it's outlawed in the Bible. But it's not. So I'm going back to the solution. The solution is, what laws are we going to function under? What are we going to use? How are we going to conduct ourselves privately? How are we going to settle conflicts privately? How are we going to go before Europeans and let them know that we no longer need their assistance in settling our affairs? It's by understanding the Doctrine of Discovery. It's by understanding the black badge of slavery and how it was applied to you. I made it home. And it's understanding what solutions you need to make. You might need to swallow your pride and stop clinging on to these fads of conscious awareness and start studying law and seeing what identity you need to apply under in order to get remedy. Just my 2 cents.